Hello, my name is Alexei Novitsky, and today I'd like to read to you guys Mind, the shifter and reorganizer of nodes. What is matter and what is light? Are they not the same energy being perceived in two different ways, all created by a single motion? Mind, the shifter and reorganizer of nodes, theoretically discusses how our mind's various states influence the natural drifting of energy as it follows along the habitable spiral of perception. There is only now, and the now moment is created by one half past and one half future, all existing within the vortex of time. Consciously, they become layered on top of each other to give us a smooth and easy experience we share. Through space preparation, we see the true shape and nature of our reality. Following the circadian rhythm along our daily orbit through conscious density, then you see it is tuned to various harmonics depending on the time of day, as it mimics a gyroscope hanging on a string at a 90-degree angle. However, it is all in the now. Our wants, don't wants, assumptions, and expectations are in constant vibration, working with the fluid to best synchronize with our projections. It is the synchronization of all beings in the light state that ultimately create our motion and manifested experience. The vortex of time. All aspects of creation are in a state of motion and in a state of orbit. It is the nature of our existence. The human body orbits the center of the earth orbits the center of the sun orbits the center of a galaxy. All those structures orbit the center of all time, with many steps between our universal system and that of the next. However, there is a greatest center of all moments. Our physical experience is directly related to that greatest inertial reference frame. Considering we are human, information exchange is controlled by a factor of the speed of light outward, and one time the speed of light inward. We cannot see past the smooth cosmic microwave background, and we cannot see into black holes. This is somewhat illusionary because there is a perception interacting with a field of energy. Einstein's theory of relativity shows us that time dilations and Lorentz contractions ultimately give us the stretching and crunching of a singular fluid to create all experiences. It is all relative, which universe you will experience and which energy may manifest. It is the relative crunching and stretching of a singular fluid that creates your current position and line of sight. A liquid light state prediction. In the liquid light state universe, we calculated a theoretical size for consciousness. There is always a starting point, and so we start here. How big is our consciousness in the now relative to our experience? Let's first examine our physical manifestation and the fifth dimensional vortex after. Perception is based off frame rate, and the human brain takes a picture of reality roughly 60 times in a second. The speed of light is approximately 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second. This means that light from your physical body travels 5 times 10 to the 6 meters per conscious snapshot. Let's call this the radius of the conscious now. When you multiply that by 2, you get 1 times 10 to the 7 meters. This implies that the longest standing wave that may exist within our conscious snapshot is 1 times 10 to the 7 meters. Time atom prediction. The crystal of time shows us that matter and light are first differentiated when acceleration is equal to the speed of light. This is what creates the habitable spiral of perception. It is a harmonic relationship of energy orbiting a black hole determined by A equal to v squared over r. Acceleration, A, is equal to the speed of light, and so the equation may read c equal to v squared over r. Our brains act like an antenna picking up information based on our maximum conscious harmonic. Every point in our three-dimensional space has a unique light state, meaning each point has a different incoming and outgoing energy and may be seen as the center of a black hole. Essentially, every point in space and time has a unique sphere of orbiting energy that creates it. Time atom puts you in the center of time and shows how your perceived experience or dimension is a direct relationship to the incoming energies that orbit you and the conscious harmonic of your mind. You could say in a physical sense that our consciousness is created by waves consisting of delta to fast gamma. Each of those vibrations would then be tuned to a specific orbital rate and distance. For example, at 1.2 Hz, the delta wave may be considered the longest wave in our experience. When you consider orbital motion of the fifth dimension, consisting of light speed acceleration towards center, you see that each conscious harmonic manifests, or interacts rather, with a specific field of energy. This is what gives us the table of universes and implies our next conscious harmonic will be related to a frequency of 100 to 220 Hz, centered around 160 Hz, and 320 Hz to follow. Astronomical significance. Deltaverse may exist in a cloud that orbits our center of time at a radius of 5 times 10 to the 6 meters. Take a moment to really look at what this may imply. We only perceive the now moment, which is a creation of scaled waveforms as matter is being crunched in from the fluid and light stretched away. Our physical is illusionary in that nature. The still pencil. In a physical sense, the pencil sitting still on the table is not moving. All we are seeing is the physical now. It is not the true past of the energy creating it or the true future of that flow. In a real sense, it is being manifested, blipping in and out of solidity at scales related to the Planck second. It is a focusing, a curling, and an emitting of a fluid as it continues to drift inward. It is in a state of constant manifestation from scaled waveforms that pass through and continue onward. The table of universes. Understanding that each harmonic is ultimately controlled by an orbit of the fifth dimension, we may now create a table of perceivable universes and theorize on other energies or flows which may offer us a conscious experience. This also offers us insight into the total field of perceivable experiences for human consciousness. Remember, they are all related to 2 to the n for the noviverse direction, which would be considered denser, and 1 over 2 to the n for the lower verse direction, which is less dense. One thing to note is that humans have a prime multiplier of 2 related to orbits within time. It may be possible that other complete sets exist with 3 to the n, 5 to the n, and so on. These fields would require an extra bit of technology to properly harmonize. Either way, there exist more dense and less dense realms of creation in which we may harmonize. However, how does our conscious now affect the manifesting and manifested realms? How do our postures of mind, body, and spirit influence the past, present, and future? Where do we exist? From our perception, the physical body clearly exists within our dimension. However, when you consider your body throughout all of time, you see that your physical body is a manifestation of less dense and more dense realms overlapping to create a now moment. It is like the still pencil being manifested into the current position. When looking at this from above, you could be a string of energy that starts from the most outer regions of the lower verse and spiraling inward into our waking universe and then continuing onward towards the center of time. Amplitude and frequency of thought forms. There are many types of thought forms, and for reasons here, we'll break it down into wants, don't wants, assumptions, and expectations. The in the moment, short pacing, for example, getting a glass of water, a kind of I'll just do this real quick kind of thought, would have a higher frequency when compared to a subconscious thought form relating to assumptions and expectations about the general nature of reality. This is easiest to see by looking at the theory or concept of space preparation. As the now manifests from the light state, there is a crunching effect of the electromagnetic wave. It shows that the future of the light state exists in extremely long waveform. The now exists in the state of matter. The light state just before the now is composed of very short waves but not yet manifested. The easy user interface of the mind, body, and spirit is the shifter or reorganizer of nodes. The once of the now work with the waves that are closer to being manifest. These would be of a very high frequency and almost that of matter. The assumptions and expectations of a lifetime work in the longest of the wavelengths. They start reorganizing the light state from the greatest reaches of our consciousness. A daily orbit. Throughout our day, our bodies naturally follow the rising and setting of the sun. This includes our conscious harmonics. This cycle is known as the circadian rhythm. Let us now map our daily orbit around the center of time so we may gain more insight into the nature of reality. Here is a very simple schedule that outlines the maximum conscious harmonic in relationship to time of day. Let's start from the moment we enter our deltaverse. A circadian rhythm properly tuned to nature will follow as so. From approximately 11:30 p.m. to 2:30 a.m., our primary conscious harmonic is the delta wave. From 2:30 a.m. to about 5:30 a.m., we are in theta waves. Then from 5:30 a.m. to 7 a.m., we are in alpha waves. Throughout the day, from 7 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., we flux from beta to alpha, but are primarily in beta. As we start to wind down, our conscious harmonics start to slow. From 7:30 p.m. to about 10:30 p.m., we are in alpha. Then from 10:30 p.m. to 11, we drop back down into theta. The deltaverse. Starting from midnight, we see our primary conscious harmonic is the delta wave. As morning approaches, our consciousness enters the halfway point between harmonizing with the delta wave versus that of the theta. At this moment, approximately 2:30 a.m. and at a radius of 6 times 10 to the 5 meters is when our antenna switches to the theta state, the thetaverse. As conscious tuning follows its natural orbit, it accelerates towards the center of time. At approximately 5:30 a.m., at a distance of 1.5 times 10 to the 5 meters, our orbit falls into the halfway point between theta and alpha. This is the moment when our antenna switches from theta to alpha, the alpha verse. Soon after, at approximately 7 a.m., our conscious density then reaches the beta state, which is at about 37,500 meters from center, the beta verse. It seems for the next 12 hours, from 7 a.m. to 7:30 p.m., we are in a tight elliptical orbit that passes us through beta and alpha several times throughout the day. Then at approximately 7:30 p.m., it is as if we have a gravitational slingshot towards the outer edge. This causes us to pass through the theta state rather quick as we once again enter the delta range. Our orbit then starts again. It is also possible our conscious antenna orbits along the boundary line between alpha and beta, and that actions that require more cognitive capability are what trigger the switching between alpha and beta throughout the day. The habitable spiral of perception. Considering our now moment in the wake state is a result of inward drifting energy in combination with an alpha and beta state, you'd see that before energy interacts with our awake state, it first interacts with all the realms of the lower verse. The first conscious harmonic to interact with the fluid would be your delta wave. The second harmonic that would interact would be the theta. Tidal locking of conscious spheres. All energy that creates the body is synchronized in such a fashion to manifest. When you consider the natural manifestation of consciousness, it seems to follow an orbit related to the precession of a gyroscope hanging on a string at a 90-degree angle. In essence, our perception is being dipped into a fluid and then it undergoes precession as the fluid spirals through. All orbits have influence in our experience. The pulls and pushes of the Noviverse realm are also apparent, and we will speak on this later. For now, let's stay focused on our typical conscious modes, which are the delta, theta, alpha, and beta. This shows that as the 2.5 Hertz rotation of the delta wave may be related to a 24-hour orbit within the fluid. The 5 Hertz of theta may be related to a 12-hour orbit, the 10 Hertz of alpha would be related to a 6-hour orbit, and beta would be related to a 3-hour orbit. When you map the orbits of these fifth-dimensional spheres, you notice something peculiar. It seems as if our center of influence is related to the center of mass of these fifth-dimensional spheres. For example, starting at midnight, you can say that all of our spheres are on the left side of the image. Then throughout the day, the spheres all orbit at their tidally locked rates. What you notice is that the only difference between midnight and noon is a sphere related to the delta wave. The only difference between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., again, is the sphere related to the delta wave. This basically shows that our entire conscious experience is somewhat related to the orbiting of these fifth-dimensional tidally locked spheres and that they cause our gyroscopic precession. When you expand this outward and inward to include the dimensions of the lower verse and Noviverse, you see that more alignments exist within this tidally locked fluid. Great precessions relating to dimensional alignments emerge. Dimensional alignments. What does this even mean? What is a dimensional alignment? Following the circadian rhythm, we see that conscious perception is somewhat guided by the orbiting of 6 spheres that are tidally locked within the 5th dimension. This is literally just our perception within time. It is the tuning of energy to the human body, which may be considered the mind's spaceship. Our biggest orbit of experience is related to the delta wave, which either has a 1 Hertz processing speed or 1 day when relating to the vortex. Considering its all harmonic ratios and human perception exists within delta to fast gamma, we see that humans gather information from 6 harmonics of experience. Fast gamma may be our first step into the afterlife or denser realms. When relating to our physical universe, we can say that delta and theta are dreamland or the past. Alpha and beta is wake state, and that slow and fast gamma is towards the afterlife or future state of the greater now. In order to be in a shifted dimension with slight overlap, you'd either need to have your delta shifted inward to the fast gamma towards the Noviverse direction, or fast gamma would be needed to be shifted towards the lower verse. For a dimension of the Noviverse being related to our universe, we could say that a 2.5 Hertz delta wave would relate to the 80 Hertz of a wave of a being in a completely shifted dimension. The 5 Hertz alpha wave would relate to a 160 Hertz field. Each of these is related to a time scale of orbit. This is considering only brainwave activity. The alpha and beta state would then be 320 Hz and 640 Hz. When you consider orbits of the fluid in the fifth dimension, delta relates to a 24-hour orbit, theta a 12-hour, alpha a 6-hour, beta a 3-hour, slow gamma a 90-minute, fast gamma a 45-minute, and so on. This shows that in the denser realms of the Noviverse, that a 640 Hz conscious harmonic would then be related to 337-second orbit. All of those inward experiences would align daily. However, considering we are concerned with perceived experience, it may make more sense to approximate dimensional relationships of time dilations and Lorentz contractions based off relative size and orbital rate. For example, the delta wave of 2.5 Hz has a diameter of 2.4 times 10 to the 6 meters. The slow gamma wave of 40 Hz has a diameter of 10,000 meters. Here we see a difference in size of 240 times with a difference in rotation of 16 times. When you put the two together, you get 3,840. However, it is a rough estimate, and on the other side of the spectrum, you get 4,096. A safe number to use for the time dilation factor between dimensions relating 5 harmonic shifts would be 4,000 to 1. You can now see how dimensional alignments emerge. This time dilation chart between dimensions would be related to 5-dimensional shifts, referring to dimensional shifts of perception. For example, 1-dimensional shift would relate to the time dilation between our 2.5 Hz delta to the 40 Hz slow gamma. The amount of time dilation between one harmonic would be 8 times, and this is related to the diameter being 4 times as small while having the orbital frequency being twice as much. Golden alignment. Why even discuss fields of energy outside our perception? What does this have to do with our daily routine and the choices we make? Synchronization of the light state starts from the greatest reaches of our experience. We are a spiral of energy that is constantly drifting inwards towards the center of time. The physics of love, synchronicity, shows that our natural manifestation is the end result of the synchronization of all the realms of the lower verse. Aligning with this flow is key for connecting to the universal mind and influencing denser realms of creation. Creation stemming from offset bodies will not last in time. They will be continuously drifting further and further from the golden spot, causing the laminar flow of your creation to become turbulent. It will increase the amount of pacing you ultimately undergo. Consider water coming from a faucet in a smooth, continuous flow. That could be considered the natural energy of creation. You could say you have full strength of the laminar flow on your side when you work with it. Forcing a will or want that is not in your flow is like trying to fill a cup that is not underneath the faucet and attempting to fill it by splashing the water sideways with your hands. What is one to do when the cup is not under the faucet and yet that is the one you want filled? You can either move the cup or you can move the faucet. However, it is important to understand that this will not last as the projections of the lower verse will constantly be fighting you. Call this the intuition of the heart or our greatest sense, that of synchronicity. Prayer. How might these concepts relate to modern-day prayer and religions? Have we just theoretically discovered the foundation of prayer and how it may work? Let's discuss what prayer may be considered and then discuss the greater picture involved. Prayer, in the simplest terms, might be considered like asking God for something. Maybe something physical or mental, like guidance. It's a sort of way to connect consciously to God and to help others, help you forgive, and ultimately tends to create more love and harmony in your life. Let's now consider the natural synchronization of the lower verse realms, the habitable spiral of perception, the circadian rhythm of the human, and the denser realms of the noviverse. Let's start with our awake state and see how that relates to our universe. Our awake state is primarily focused within alpha and beta waves of conscious activity. While in awake state, our conscious minds dominate our cognitive processes, while the subconscious or universal mind may be whispering. The actions we make are in our physical realm. We may move objects and perform almost limitless actions within this space. However, we can only really go so far based on the spirit potentials that exist. Actions that pace too far from the laminar flow of your creation will cause you to spiral into delusions as they become disconnected from the laminar flow or faucet of creation. Lower verse connections. From the circadian rhythm, we see that we first encounter the theta wave type at 10:30 p.m. We then enter the delta range at approximately 11 p.m., and then re-enter the theta range at about 2:30 a.m. This shows that our point of most submersion into the lower verse is at about 12:45 a.m. Let's consider this a turning point in our conscious orbit. Is there a difference when moving into lower verse versus moving out of it? Orbiting towards the lower verse. What we see from our gyroscopic precession is that after about 4 p.m., we are headed back towards the lower verse. This is the moment when we first start migrating back towards the purest realms of creation. It's important to understand that starting new activities at this time is not ideal, and it may be better to be ending the daily routine at this point. In an energetic sense, what are we doing? Energy is constantly spiraling inwards towards denser creations, and so this time may be seen as swimming upriver or against the wind. How does that translate into experience? When riding a bicycle into the wind, it is best to tuck to avoid drag. This drag may be related to the synchronization of our daily egos to the true you that exists without delusion. Considering our natural orbit is related to the focusing of experiences, and we see that holding delusions will cause you to misalign with your incoming flow. When relating to communication with beings of less dense realms, you see that this is when it's time to listen, orbiting towards the Noviverse. After 12:45 a.m., you could say that we transition from orbiting towards the lower verse to orbiting towards the Noviverse. At this point, you could say we are going with the wind. Consider a gust of wind or wave in the ocean. Each gust or wave could be considered like a thought emerging from the lower verse. This is almost when it's best to ask for what you want. Imagine surfing against the waves in an ocean. You really can't do it. While surfers paddle out, they almost do their best to avoid being caught. However, when going with the waves, the surfer can perform various maneuvers. They can cut up, cut down, do a hang 10, and any other moves they choose, all under one condition. They need to work with the wave that is coming and understand understand the limits of their experience as a surfer. Only the most experienced surfers catch the biggest waves on the planet. In the same sense, those waves have the ability to do much damage if you do not ride them all the way to the end. In short, before bed, it may actually be more beneficial to listen rather than to ask and project. When moving forward in the morning, may be a better time to ask and guide the creation of your experience. Sleep. When we sleep, our egos are somewhat removed. This may allow for the natural synchronization of energy to work more efficiently. Perhaps this is a key to the relationship between sleep and rejuvenation. When we are awake, our postures of mind, body, and spirit may somewhat be controlled by the daily deeds of life. This implies going along with the delusions you have been born into, along with the ones you may have picked up during your life's journey. Many of these actions are not natural to the universe and are a result of societal expectations. They become compounded on top of each other and somewhat layered like the layers of an onion. We are all fundamentally made of the same fluid of experience as every other bit of physical matter within our dimension. The true you in this sense may be the you that exists without delusions. It is a perfect flow of laminar fluid that stems from the lower verse and drifts inwards through wake state and continues all the way to the noviverse. The curling of this fluid is what creates your body. It is the curling of fluid as it drifts inwards. Holding postures creates turbulent flows around the center of your manifestation. When we sleep, our awake egos somewhat dissolve and the subconscious mind takes over. Lucid dreaming may be a partial exemption to this. The subconscious ego. The subconscious mind, or universal mind, is somewhat separated from the wake mind. However, they all work in harmony to create our experience. For purposes here, the subconscious mind may be related more to the assumptions and expectations that are not present in the cognitive process when it comes to perceiving experiences, associations, and actions we make. Sometimes actions that required much training make their way to the subconscious. A good example is in martial arts. After a certain point, one does not focus so much on how they stand, how they kick, or how they defend. Those actions have become second nature through focused practice and intent. The ability to speak may also be considered somewhat subconscious. Yes, we take several years to speak, but once you know the language and it becomes secondhand nature, you no longer need to practice. The same is true for walking and riding a bicycle. Hence the saying, it's like riding a bike. Almost all aspects of thought become categorized in mind. Categorizations limit one's ability to make greater connections. Tree branches of knowledge. Information may attach itself to tree branches of knowledge, and so concepts and ideologies become inseparable to the cognitive mind. At the same time, other concepts grow further and further from each other to the point where there is no overlap. A quick example of items or flows becoming attached could be getting to work. Depending on your typical method of travel, the idea alone of getting to work involves a car, traffic, buying gas, and etc. There are millions of ways to get to work. You could walk, jog, ride a bicycle, and even fly a helicopter. Once the process has become routine, it becomes solidified. Program subconscious. Therefore, you may see how all of our minds become subconsciously programmed through our daily experiences. This is primarily the result of media, propaganda, and cultural expectations. Be aware of marketing and media you watch. Modern society is geared towards control and making money, and so most of everything you see being projected by another is simply an attempt to market and make money. They are not really true to the natural flow of creation. For example, people become attached to logos and brands. They might even prefer an inferior product. Marketing may be one of the most dangerous inventions in modern society. It has the ability to make you feel as if you do not have value, or on the other hand, make you feel as if you are more valuable than the person next to you. This ultimately leads to societies becoming completely out of tune with reality. For example, it really doesn't make any sense for everyone to have perfect grass in their yards. In short, if we all had gardens that produce food, the world would be a little bit different. Expand that thinking to all other aspects of society, and you see that most societies are not sustainable, yet we are guided to believe this is success. What does this have to do with dreaming and projected futures? Our dream state, somewhat guided by the subconscious, is constantly working with the fluid of the less dense realms of the lower verse. Awareness of your subconscious assumptions and expectations is key for returning to zero and guiding the flow of your creation. Assumptions and expectations. Our assumptions and expectations start reorganizing the light state from the greatest reaches of our influence. It is a synchronization of thoughts and wills that have been projected from a lower verse realm that then interact with ours. As we return to dreamland, referring to the theta and delta brainwaves, these need to pack properly with the incoming energy. This is the moment when we begin to dream. It is almost as if our subconscious minds create the fabrics of this dreamland, and that the subconscious waves take charge. Meaning, like a trained martial artist that has learned to instinctually avoid kicks and punches, the actions you make in dreams are not consciously controlled. It is almost like an autopilot may have been turned on. This is the time when you have most effect on the incoming flow of creation, and therein lies the importance of subconscious trainings. Training the subconscious. Training the subconscious mind to let go of preconceived notions and reprogramming for desired results is possible. Like learning a new style of martial arts, you must first become aware of your footing. In this case, referring to the root of the thought process. Once the root of the thought is consciously perceived, it is possible to retrain the mind to see possibilities in another way. If not lucid, the subconscious mind will guide your dreams. The physics of love, synchronicity, shows how postures may solidify when maintained in delusions. For example, if you are always late, that will become solidified into the subconscious. Take a deep look at the self. Why am I always late? What is the root of it? Once identified, take logical steps to change the thought process to a more, I'll be late if I do this. This also gives insights into the fractals of potentiality based on the choices we make and increase your overall level of awareness. Lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is the ability to be awake in your dream. It is the ability to control all aspects such as location, characters, and more. You can literally fly with no technology and visit places you've never been. There are many degrees to the lucidity of the dream. The most advanced practitioners may find solutions to problem and true learning may occur too. There are many practices for lucid dreaming. A key aspect is having your energy properly harmonized into dreamland. The closer you are to your golden spot, the more lucid your dreams will become. The more lucid your dreams are, the more power you'll have to influence the natural drifting of energy along the habitable spiral of perception. In short, you want to be in the faucet of creation when heading into dreamland. If not, your awake mind will turn off and the subconscious mind will take over and guide you towards the laminar flow. It is the removal of ego that allows for the drifting of your energy to properly harmonize with the lower verse realm while synchronizing with the future. learning in dreams. Once lucid dreaming is mastered, you may undergo several types of experiences. It is possible to get a glance of future events, revisit past events, and even learn new arts and skills. It is a playground where virtually anything is possible. It is even possible to interact with people or beings of various densities. This includes the departed. Understanding that dreamland is not physical is important. It is in a metaphysical plane where our body's shape and form is a function of the subconscious or lucid mind. Time dilations may also occur, which allows dreams to last longer. Messages across civilizations. Dreamland is a function of brain harmony with the incoming light state of the physical world. When stemming from a point of zero in a lucid dream, you may meet with others at ease. You may coordinate locations, pass information, and more. It is somewhat like a natural metaverse. At the same time, those that are listening to the flows of the lower verse may gather similar information stemming from it. This may be how people or civilizations discover concepts and technologies somewhat simultaneously, even though thousands of miles apart. Lucidity may also occur when in meditation and during out-of-body experiences. The future now is not our future. But one thing to note when looking into the past or future is that it may not be the flow that your experience has passed through or is headed towards. Call it the 99% most probable past or future. This is because we experience time in a linear fashion, whereas when you are looking through time, you are seeing the greater now. This means that as your experience drifts inwards towards that location of experience, events may change based on delusions that are being held. Erosion caused by fluid flow. Consider it sort of erosion based on the inward drifting of energy. As projections of mind synchronize to create a physical experience, personal delusions may cause erosions within the laminar flow. An easy way to think of it is like a river. Consider yourself to be a drop of water that is caught in the current. During a lucid meditation, it may be like you are floating above the river and able to see the path your water will take. However, there is still 4D time that must pass before it is experienced by the self. During that time, much water may pass by and cause erosion in the place you looked. A fish could swim by and move a rock. Someone on the other side of the river could toss a stone. And countless other events may transpire to make it so the path of the fluid changes. It is true within the river of time as well. We are subject to the constantly changing texture of the vortex based on the pebbles that are tossed in by the beings of various densities. These make seeing the exact future or past of your 4D manifestation almost impossible. Juggling the fluid. With every push is a pull, and with every pull is a push. This is an extremely important concept to understand when creating within the vortex. Yes, we may reach our goals, but with what consequences? Creations stemming from offset bodies will not last. This highlights the importance of returning to zero after every action of mind, body, and spirit. Great alignments in relationship to conscious perception. What is the importance of being at zero during a processional alignment? Why does it matter? What we notice from the circadian rhythm is that we follow a 24-hour orbit. As we move towards the lower verse, we tend to go into a dream state, referring to the delta and theta waves of conscious perception. People that are at their zero will properly harmonize into dreamland and be lucid during the process. During great alignments of conscious perception, which roughly occurs every 2,000 years, our experience will be tugged even further into dreamland. This implies that people that are not near their golden spots will fall asleep or spiral into delusions as they harmonize into these less dense realms. How many unique minds exist? Although we are all unique individuals, we all stem from the original thought. All our pacing motions may be the result of the original projection drifting inwards from the most outer regions, creating distortions as it passes through the layers of conscious perception. Like the many minds of the individual cells that make the body, we are the mind of it all. All pacings are a result of the original mind. There you go. I hope you enjoyed it. That was Mind, the Shifter and Reorganizer of Nodes. And I have all the books over at luciuslabs.com. So check it out. Thanks for your time.